Charles Frederick Albright was born in August 1933. He was 3 weeks old when adopted by Dell and Fred Albright, from an orphan's home. His mother, a schoolteacher, was very strict and overprotective of Charles. She accelerated his education, helping him to skip 2 grades. If Dell seemed overprotective, friends said, surely it was because she had never raised a child before. Charles himself recognized how fiercely she wanted him to succeed. Each morning, before the school bus arrived, she had him practice the piano for at least 30 minutes. Not that Charles ever openly complained. He always appreciated that his mother taught him manners. Dell told him to speak politely about other people or say nothing at all. She told him to respect women. As he grew older, she insisted on chauffeuring him every time he was on a date. Dell also introduced Charles to the world of taxidermy. When he was 11 years old, she enrolled him in the Northwestern School of Taxidermy. Taxidermy is the art of preserving an animal's body via mounting or stuffing, for the purpose of display or study. As Charles set to work on the dead birds he found, Dell was right beside him. She showed him how to use all the tools: the knife used to cut the skull, the little spoon used to scoop out the brains, the scalpel required to cut away the eyes from their sockets, the forceps that pulled out the eyes. She even skinned the first bird for him, teaching him not to cut too deep. He was considered a very bright boy in Dallas. He graduated from Adamson High School at 15 and he was something of a celebrity. When Charles was 14, Dell and Fred purchased a piece of property in their neighborhood and gave it to Charles. He sold it to buy more lots, and the Dallas Times-Herald published a story about him under the headline "World's Youngest Real Estate Man Amassing Nest Egg for College." His criminal career started early. At age 13, he was already a petty thief, and was arrested for aggravated assault. At age 15 he graduated from high school and forged his way into North Texas University. Albright was caught stealing hundreds of dollars worth of merchandise from a hardware store and received a 2-year prison sentence. Yet he served less than 6 months before he was out again. Dell Albright went to the store owners and tried to reimburse them for what was taken. She tried to persuade the judge to let her act as Charlie's lawyer. She even asked that she take his place in prison. Yet the boy went to prison for a year, spending his 18th birthday there. Dell, meanwhile, worked to keep the matter hushed up, so that no one in her neighborhood knew that Charlie Albright had become a convicted felon. At age 16, the police caught him with some petty cash from a cash register, 2 handguns, and a rifle. He spent a year in jail. After his release he attended Arkansas State Teachers College and majored in pre-med studies. Found with stolen items, he was expelled from the college before graduation but not prosecuted. Unfazed, he simply falsified his degrees, stealing the right documents, forging signatures, and giving himself fictitious bachelor's and master's degrees. He married his college girlfriend and they had a daughter. Charles's wife was a teacher, but he failed to hold a job for long. He continued to cheat by forging checks and claiming false credentials, and he was caught in his deception while teaching at a high school, but he always managed to get probation for his illegal acts. In 1965, he and his wife separated, finally divorcing in 1974. In 1981, after his mother died, while Charles Albright was visiting some friends, he sexually molested their 9-year-old daughter. They reported him and he was prosecuted. He pled guilty and received only probation. He later claimed that he was innocent but had pled to avoid a hassle. In 1985, Charles met a woman named Dixie in Arkansas. He invited her to come live with him and it wasn't long before she was paying his bills and supporting him. By the time he met Dixie, however, Charles Albright had already created another life for himself. Although he masterfully hid his secret from everyone who knew him, he was a veteran of red light districts all over Dallas. To some prostitutes, he was a whoremonger. Charles took a paper route in the early morning, apparently to visit prostitutes without raising his wife's suspicions. On December 13, 1990, a body was found. Mary Lou Pratt, 35, was a well-known prostitute in the Oak Cliff neighborhood in Dallas. Her body was found lying face up. She was wearing only a t-shirt. She was shot in the back of the head with a .44 caliber bullet. The medical examiner discovered that this killer had removed both eyes without making much of a mark on the eyelids, and apparently had taken them with him. There were no eyeballs, no tissue, nothing. Mary Pratt's eyes had been cut out and removed so carefully that her upper and lower eyelids were left undisturbed. This was not an operation taught in medical school. The killer had to know how to slip a knife around the eyes, making sure not to injure the adjoining skin, and then cut the 6 major muscles holding each eye in the socket, as well as the rope-tough optical nerve. With the eyelids shut, it was impossible to tell the eyes were missing. Surely, whoever did this had to have had a lot of practice on someone, or something else. Mary Pratt's killing was a dumped body case, one of the hardest types of murders to solve. She had obviously been killed in one location and dumped somewhere else. There were no witnesses to either the killing or the dumping, no murder weapon, little forensic evidence, no fingerprints, and no apparent motive. Considering the kind of felonious characters who nightly swing by the Star Motel, Mary Pratt could have been shot by just about anyone. In February 1991, the second victim was found on a Sunday morning, on the same South Dallas road where Mary Pratt was dumped. Like Mary, she was mostly naked. Like Mary, she was a prostitute. Her name was Susan Peterson, age 27. She had been shot in the head, chest, and stomach. Her eyelids were closed. She was found nearly nude, with her t-shirt pulled up to display her breasts in the same manner as Mary. She'd been shot 3 times, in the top of the head, in the left breast and point blank in the back of the head. One bullet had pierced her heart and another entered her brain. A clump of her hair lay on her chest. She had been dumped in South Dallas, just outside city limits, and the medical examiner found that this victim bore another grisly similarity: her eyes had been surgically removed. On March 18, 1991, Shirley Williams, a part-time prostitute, was found naked, lying on her side near a school, with her eyes removed. She also had facial bruises and a broken nose, and she had been shot through the top of her head and in the face. The autopsy on Shirley Williams' body would show that the surgery had been hurried. The broken tip of a blade was found embedded in the skin near her right eye. But there were still no witnesses, no murder weapon, no fingerprints. Worse, the killer had now murdered a black woman, and he had moved locations. Just as the detectives had feared, the publicity about the case had sent the killer away from his South Dallas dumping ground. There was no telling where he would hit again. Once word of Shirley Williams' killing spread, the Star Motel turned into a ghost town. Some prostitutes, black and white, told officers that they were leaving Dallas. Others said they were getting out of the business. A few women, so desperate for drug money that they couldn't leave, moved together to a street corner next to the home of a man who promised to serve as their lookout and bodyguard. After the murder of Shirley Williams, more witnesses came forward and told police about Charles Albright. He was arrested in his home. Despite a withering all-night interrogation by officers, Charles Albright refused to confess to anything. He acted as if he had never heard the names of the murdered prostitutes. Police searched through every square inch of the South Dallas properties. They searched his Oak Cliff house 6 times. The FBI even brought in a high-tech machine that could see through walls. Although the searches produced an array of interesting items, they never came up with the eyeballs. Behind Charlie's hand-built fireplace mantel, police discovered a hidden compartment filled with pistols and rifles. None, however, turned out to be the murder weapon. The trial began on December 13, 1991. The prosecution suffered many blows and their case seemed circumstantial at best. The only evidence that was solid was the forensic evidence. Hairs found at Shirley Williams' murder scene matched Charles Albright. On December 18, 1991, the jury had already deliberated and found Charles Albright guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Shirley Williams, Mary Lou Pratt and Susan Peterson.